Ever since iOS 14.5 came out back in the end of April, about 6 months ago, right now it's the end of October, it seems like Facebook advertisers across the board have complained about rising costs and problems. You can see some of these posts. I'm not going to go through and read them, but if you just go into any Facebook group or any forum or something online, you will see all kinds of chatter about rising CPM, and then ultimately that leads back to iOS 14.5 problems. So I wanted to take a look at some of my own advertising performance and see if the CPMs are indeed rising. So that kind of gave me the first challenge, which was finding an ad set to look at. To really kind of analyze things and get an idea, the ad set has to be remaining basically the same with very few changes since a time before iOS 14.5. So it's currently the end of October. It's October 26th. iOS 14.5 came out, I think, April 26th. I got it open on another monitor. April 26th. So exactly 6 months ago, iOS 14.5 came out, and we need to get data going back before that to really look at it. And, well, it really needs to have the same audience with no changes. So that kind of limited the actual ad sets that I could look at. I don't make a ton of changes to my creative and targeting, and I say this in other videos. I don't suggest anyone does. I leave things on that side generally unchanged, but what I do change are my locations. So I target by zip codes frequently and heavily, so we'll be targeting, say, 5,000 specific zip codes for a month, or we might target 1, 2, or 3 states for a month, right? So my audience is changing in that sense frequently, so I had to find ad sets that did not have those changes in audiences, and I did. I found 2 of them targeting 2 separate offers, so we have 2 sets of data to look at. So once I identified those, I went back and month by month pulled them out, starting back in March 1st, and pulled out the actual number of impressions and the cost per 1,000 impressions, which would be our CPM for each one of the ad sets. And I jotted them all out in a table, like what you see here. We have offer A, which is really its own ad set. Then offer B, this is totally different than offer A. That was its own ad set in another campaign. Right? So just to kind of give you some ideas, this might be like offer A might be like, homeowners insurance, and offer B might be like auto insurance. All right, I'm not going to tell you guys exactly where I'm spending all my big money in lead gen at the moment. So I am keeping that kind of vague and concealed, but you can see the idea through the data and see what that reports, right? So offer A was ran consistently, and both of these had the same audiences, consistently from March to October to the same audience, basically unchanged. Offer B was ran for a few months, then we stopped it for 2 months, and then it's since been resumed. So I do that with specific offers, depending on a number of factors, seasonality, or if other offers are competing for the same audience, but they are more profitable, we'll turn off the lower profitability offer, etc. Right? So somewhere around here, for some reason, June and July, offer B was turned off. Most likely, we had another offer that was running to basically the same audience. Or I shouldn't say most likely we had another. We certainly had another, but we may have had 4 or 5 offers running to the same audience. And then in that case, we'll turn on only the most profitable offers so that we're not just hammering them, and essentially driving up our own advertising costs by kind of competing with ourselves here. So what I'm saying here is I do rotate offers, and offer B here in this case, and mind you, offer A and B, these 2 are just one of probably 20 that are in a regular type of rotation. Anyways, this one was off, so we don't have any data for June or July. Whole lot of words to say. This offer was not ran. No ads were ran for it for June or July. So offer A, let's look at it. We can see in March it had a CPM of $32.36. April, $30.65. May, okay, this is going to be the first full month after the iOS update. Goes up a little, not much, stays there through June. And then July, it just drops down. And I remember this was a pretty hot month. And then it kind of slowly creeps up from July. Okay. And you can see we're spending some money there. And then March, April, and May, offer B was ran. And at this point in March, that was the first month that it was turned on. So this one had never been ran before. So typically when they've never been ran before, they get a lower CPM because the audience just has not been hit with anything like that before, right? So it's really fresh. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I really wanted this. Oh, I really wanted this, right? And then they start seeing it, and you start converting a lot of the audience, and then it kind of, the CPM or your cost per conversion goes up. I usually don't follow my CPMs. That's one thing I probably should have said in the beginning. I usually don't follow my CPMs. I don't pay any attention to these at all. I'm just strictly following my cost per conversion, and I am utilizing cost cap on it. So March, April, May, so it kind of stays about the same, right? March, it kicks off. April, it's got a little bit more data. We spend some more money on it. May, here it goes. And then we turn it off. And then June and July, it's off. August, it comes back on. And well, from here to here, it's increased about 25%. And then it increases about another 25% again in September and stays about the same for October. So what does it look like in a chart? Well, we can see it right here. All right, offer A up here. It's kind of increasing a little bit. Offer B increases at a steeper rate. If we kind of put this into percentages, you could see from $32 in March to say $36. What is that? That's like probably about 15% or so that this one went up. This one nearly went up 100% from the time that it was launched. I would say that, this number down here is kind of launch-ish, you know what I mean? Like it's just lower because it was just launched at that point. So I would say 1640 would be, kind of our point to benchmark it from. So maybe it hasn't gone up quite 100% between there and there. So definitely both of these are showing a clear increase in cost, with offer A not showing as radical of a percentage of increase in cost, whereas offer B is. Okay, so I think it's safe to say that CPMs are increasing. What other kind of observations can we make? Well, it seems like costs are increasing 15 to 20%. And I say that because I feel like offer A is more of a resilient type of measure, because this one had been going back. We've been running this one for at least a year, right? So we don't have any of this kind of honeymoon introductory phase where it's just like everybody wants it. Our CPMs are lower, and we're also spending a lot more money. You can see the numbers. We're spending a lot more money here with offer A than we were with offer B. So we had kind of I don't want to say we exploited the audience, but we're hammering that audience, and we're kind of in an area where we've gotten out, all of the people that would be excited and bring our CPM and our cost per conversion down lower. Those people are kind of history at this point, right? So we're running it to that audience that, the easy fish have been caught. Some of my increase may be attributed to seasonality or audience fatigue. And I mentioned audience fatigue already. One thing I didn't mention is seasonality. This is just looking here at maybe a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 month performance. It's not a very long time, right? Like, to really see seasonality, we'd have to look at this over a 3-year period. And I don't really think I have any ad sets. Maybe if I did some, math and kind of went back and tried to figure out when we changed ad sets or renamed things or something, I could find some kind of data, pull it together for, multiple years. But it would take a lot of work, and I'm not going to do that for this. But you would see certainly some seasonality in it. And you would see offer A really kind of takes off in January and probably has its highest volume across the board, through June, July, and then July, there's just less consumer demand. Now, offer A, this is not the only ad set running offer A. There are many more, right? And this one, this was just one specific region that we were running. So, it had not changed at all, which is why I kept using it. So, there was more money that was being spent on offer A. And what was my point with all this? Well, we just don't have the seasonality data in here, right? And maybe it's just out of season, which is why things are going up. And historically, we do see that in kind of the second 6 months of the year where costs tend to rise, right? So maybe that's a factor. With offer B, I don't know for sure, but I know that the search trends from Google would say that it follows about the same pattern as offered A. So maybe it's just seasonality, right? A new offer that I have currently reaching 4,000 zips is at a CPM of $24, right? So this right here is reaching nationwide. Okay, So nationwide. I have a new one that I just launched that's doing really hot, and it's going for a very narrow 4,000 zips. I think there's about 36,000 active zip codes in the United States. So we're just going for roughly 10% of them. That CPM is at $24. So on a very narrow audience, our CPM is still pretty low there, right? And again, maybe that's just because we're kind of in that honeymoon phase where we launch a new offer. Just keep that in mind. Maybe the CPMs are not increasing across the board. I'd say that they certainly are, right? You may need to increase your sales price if you're selling an e-commerce product, or, well, if you're selling data and information like leads, like I am, you may need to increase the price you're selling it for. Simply put, inflation, right? Everything is going up in cost. The underlying cost of Facebook ads are subsequently going to go up as well. It's just kind of the name of the game. That doesn't necessarily, so that means that, the increases in CPM that we might be seeing right now are not necessarily the result of iOS 14.5. Next up, analyze performance or costs on a period of at least 2 weeks, right? So if you go read anybody's posts in groups, you'll notice people are looking at day by day by day. I was doing good on my CPM, and then yesterday my CPM went up to $10,000 freaking dollars. What's going on? Well, that's really not an accurate picture of what it is. You need to look at things on a period of at least 2 weeks. I don't, when I open up my ads manager, I always have this set up here to last 14 days. That's what I'm looking at. And that's really what I'm concerned about. You can see each one of these as a month. 1 day, 2 day, 3 days isn't really enough to analyze things. I know that's really hard for some people to get through their head because they like to go in there and feel like they're making changes and driving things forward. But the reality is that's just simply not a long enough period. So yeah, keep that in mind. If you see 1 day where your CPM skyrocket, you're probably not looking at a long enough period. And finally, Facebook ads still work, right? I've heard people say Facebook ads are dead. That couldn't be farther from the truth. Literally could not be farther from the truth. Facebook ads still work. I'm still spending a ton of freaking money on Facebook ads, and, well, they're working. All right. One little change like this doesn't really mean the end of the world or that something is going to die. These platforms fundamentally exist by putting an offer in front of an audience, and they still work at doing this. Does this mean that, maybe there are other opportunities somewhere else? Yeah, maybe, there are. And as a paid advertiser, you should always be looking for those other opportunities and keeping your, keeping your doors open. Because what happened, when this iOS 14.5 thing came out, or before it, when, it was really kind of hyped up to be this big end of the world calamity type of scenario, people were freaking out. They're like, all right, I make my whole living running Facebook ads. And if this is going to go to zero tomorrow, or whenever this update comes out, what am I going to do then, right? So it's kind of a big eye opener for a lot of people, including myself. Where, you see these, or you're so ingrained in this one method, it's a reminder that you need to focus on, or not focus on, but explore and kind of dabble, practice in other paid advertising platforms. Because if you can make paid advertising work on one platform, you can find other paid advertising platforms that work. They might not work as well. They might work better in some cases, though. But bottom line, at the end of the day, well, two things. Number one, Facebook ads still work. And number two, dip your toes into other paid advertising platforms so that you've always got other opportunities that are working and that you're ready to kind of build that momentum into and get them to take off. So you're not reliant on one platform. You want to have a diversified source of advertising methods.